All right, and welcome into the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. OTAs have opened for teams around the league as rookie minicamps have recently wrapped up, and that's where the focus remains on this particular program as we open up the offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year odds, making our first official odds to the portfolio. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock, back with our resident New Englander on the program, Steve Lawson. And Steven, I got to tell you, man, the Rookie Awards, usually one of my favorite places to get invested with early and often, but I really didn't like the value we saw across the board here as we sit in mid-May. As someone who hit the gainer last year, Tedero McMillan, you had that ticket, I think at 10-1 it opened at. Do you feel similar this year that maybe it's not all sunshines and roses around this market, or am I being a bit of a sourpuss?
No, and usually I think you are when it comes to these betting markets. This is honestly kind of a bad market for one that we usually like to play. And you know what I mean? We both like to dive into this pool and splash around a bit. Not a lot of splashing to be done here, Seth. It's a lot of ugly juice you're kind of drinking in order to make any sort of profit. So but we will help the people navigate these rough waters and hopefully come out the other side with some profits.
Yeah, and last year, really, Steve, we saw the value down the board, right? My flyer last year was Cam Scatterbo, 250-1. By the time we got, I think, to week 7 or 8 before he had that injury, that thing was down to like 11-1, right? And I was getting big cash out offers. We saw Jackson Dart, who his odds shrunk considerably once he got the reins. Tyler Shuck, same type of thing. I'm not seeing those same values out there. Carson Schlesinger over there on the defensive side thing too. But we will certainly break it down. And I think this is going to be one of those, hey, let's sit and wait type of years. Let's be patient. Maybe one of these rookies get off to a hot start like we saw Mecca Ibuka do a year ago. And then maybe there's some opportunity to get invested mid-season, even in the preseason potentially as well. So this will not be the last time we take a look at these markets, but certainly the first. And a quick reminder, the easiest way to support us right here at IBT is to make sure you guys subscribe to the main channel and then also that sub channel over there. Again, that's youtube.com/@IBT podcast. That is where it is all NFL football from fantasy and from a gambling standpoint right now there on the sub channel. And Steve certainly up to something season right here, not only for the podcast, but for IBT as a whole. So excited to let people in on that news here in just a little bit. But first, we got some bets to throw out, man. So let's go ahead and fire it up here in between bets.
Between bets. Between bets.
All right, it's between bets, and we are looking at the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year odds. Currently, right now, we have the Betting Pros consensus board. This rates all of your odds across all shops and prediction markets. And let's go ahead and fire it up here at the top of the board. Jeremiah Love plus 375. He is your betting favorite right now after going top 3 in the NFL draft to the Arizona Cardinals. And then Fernando Mendoza, 4-1, maybe might not start the season. You have to beat out Kirk Cousins for that job right away. I think for that number to return value, Carnell Tate, the presumptive wide receiver 1 in this class, 7-1. Jordan Tyson, 7-1. We also have Jadarian Price, the other first-round rookie running back, 8-1. Mekhi Lemon, 12-1. Casey Concepcion for the Browns, 30-1. Another first-round wide receiver, Carson Beck, 30-1. The wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals coming out of Miami. Omar Cooper Jr. comes in at 30-1. Kenyon Sadiq, 30-1. 2 more New York Jets offensive players. Antonio Williams, 35-1. He was a day 2 pick for the Washington Commanders out of Clemson. Denzel Boston, of course, another surprising day 2 pick. I actually thought maybe he would go on night 1, but he falls to Cleveland as well. Eli Stowers comes in at 51. Jonah Coleman at 60-1 there for the Denver Broncos. Jeremy Bernard, 66-1. And then, of course, Chris Brazzell of the Carolina Panthers at 75-1. Chris Bell, 75-1. And Nicholas Singleton to round us out at 75-1. Steve, overall impressions of this board, specifically at the top of it. What do you think about the big 3 plus 375 for Love, 4-1 for Fernando. 7-1 is the best you're getting for Tate right now.
It's weird. It's weird. It's really a board that is telling me that the odds makers see very little room for anyone to really grow into this. But it's just a weird board, and it's kind of a result of a weird draft, right? Like,
Sure.
this isn't an odds makers problem. It was an NFL draft problem where a lot of guys ended up in positions where it's going to be really hard for them to like get enough stuff and stats to win this award. But I will say that while looking at this, and while some at the very top, it's kind of ugly at the very top, there is some significant value as you move lower down this board.
Okay, we're going to get to a couple of those picks. I think the interesting thing with Fernando, if you want to play him, I suggest we wait. Let's just wait till week 2, something like that. See, when that bye week is going to be for the Raiders, and then pounce right before that. And maybe he does get the job from Kirk Cousins in the preseason. We never see him on the bench, and we never get that number inflated a little bit. But for a guy who hasn't won the start and has a veteran there that knows the offense like Kirk Cousins, it's not something I want to be invested in at 4-1. You know me, Steve. I love some Fernando Mendoza. And honestly, like, if I'm taking one of these running backs, I love Jeremiah Love, right? But with the backfield competition he has, i.e. Tyler Algier, most importantly, along the goal line, who's been known to be a bit of a vulture, I worry that plus 375, especially for an Arizona Cardinals team, not going to be on primetime, not going to be, really someone that I think a lot of people are watching on a week-to-week basis. It's hard to get invested there. Like, price 8-1, like if you want a shot at a first-round rookie, I don't hate him, or like Concepcion 30-1. And any thoughts on those two players there? Like, I think for price, like the issue is Zach Charbonnet, if he comes back at some point, does his workload get reduced? And then like Casey Concepcion, you're kind of just fighting through the Browns quarterback mishap. Like if I knew it was Shador from week 1, I think 31 is a great number on KC. Personally, a guy who can be moved inside and outside across that offense.
Yeah, wait, so you like Concepcion better with Shador under center than
absolutely,
Deshaun?
Absolutely, yeah. You don't?
No, I'd prefer Deshaun Watson.
Man, no way.
Yeah, just
not
like
the Achilles as well.
I mean, not like as a person. Like, I don't want to hang out with him more than Shador.
Sure.
I don't want to hang out with Shador that much either. Jadarian Price, yeah. The problem is Zach Charbonnet, right? He's gonna have to put up kind of dummy numbers real early, to win Rookie of the Year, and I just don't know if he's gonna be able to do that because, frankly, like that really wasn't the Seahawks like bread and butter. Was, you know what I mean? Like, everyone kind of has this recency bias of like the Super Bowl went so well for them on the ground, but throughout the year it actually was a bit of a problem that they weren't generating as much efficiency on the ground.
Sure.
And Jadarian Price, like, he's similar to Kenneth Walker, but we have yet to see him really be able to do some of those Kenneth Walker things, like turn busted plays into 10, 15, 20-yard gains. That offensive line is not elite by any means. It's solid. It's good. But they also lost Kubiak to Vegas. And so that's going to be another question mark of like, does the run game get better or worse? Stay the same? If it stays the same, there's no prayer of him winning this award. Right?
Yeah,
like, get better. It needs to get significantly better. I will say it's like the one award that non-quarterbacks have a shot at. You know what I mean? Like, like the MVP is such a quarterback award, and then Offensive Player of the Year, they almost never give it to a quarterback. This one is wide open. Anyone can win this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think like some speculative fun ones. I can't get myself to click the button at the odds they are, but like 50-1 for Eli Stowers, like, a Sean Mannion offense that relies on 2 tight end sets, an offense that we're going to see a bit different, where it's going to be a bit heavier. It's going to be a bit run heavier, but at the same time play action heavy, which could open up some downfield shots for Eli Stowers, specifically if, hey, like we're going to run this guy out of the slot. We're going to put Smith on the one side. Maybe we'll have Lemon on the outside. But it's just a lot, like, to get invested with those Eagle players at the prices they are right now. It doesn't feel particularly fair, just because there are a lot of question marks. AJ Brown, is he truly going to move on? And And then you just have like your DGen bets, which I don't feel like the Scatterboo bet last year, 250 to 1 was a DGen bet that like, hey, if this guy wins the job, I think he's talented enough to make his mark. And like, honestly, I think he could have challenged for that award down the stretch. But like, we're getting like DGen bets at like now at 60 and 75 to 1. Like Singleton, I wouldn't mind because I think he could win that job eventually in Tennessee. I just think it's going to take half the season. So 75 to 1, no thank you. Same with Jonah Coleman, 60 to 1. I think he could wrestle away that job potentially. And what about Jeremy Bernard? Like that's a guy I think who very, not the highest ceiling, but I think he has a very high floor. It's just like, do you trust Aaron Rodgers with a rookie? That's like kind of the thing there. And so the DGen bets just don't feel as fun and doesn't feel as much, value there as there maybe was a year ago.
Yeah, that's really the issue that we're looking at. And then you get some weird bets or weird odds, I guess, like where Omar Cooper Jr. and Kenyon Sadiq are the same exact odds and they're on the same team. That doesn't make any sense. That's odd. That's bizarro land, especially where Casey Concepcion and Denzel Boston do not have the same odds. And they were drafted, within, 16 picks of 10 picks of each other. So it doesn't make a ton of sense. But again, it just really speaks to the landing spots of these things. Eli Stowers, I do think if you're going to do a DGen bet, that's probably the one to go with, right? Because
yes,
Coleman and Singleton have to burn through two different people to get to their starting spot. Whereas Stowers, he is the heir apparent, right? Like this is who they want to go with in the future. I think he is probably the guy that you want to take a DGen bet on.
Okay. We will give you guys a couple of best bets here at the end of the show. We do have some money already down for this particular market, but we did want to make sure we kind of just give you a holistic view first of the odds boards. And next up here, we are going to the defensive player of the year markets, where is David Bailey coming in at plus 425 as your betting favorite. That's where he opened at. Now he's closer to 5 to 1 here. Arvell Reese, who slid down to the Giants at 5 overall, plus 750. Caleb Downs of the Cowboys, plus 850. Sonny Styles, plus 850 of the Commanders. Mansour Delane, who the Chiefs trade up to get in the first round, 9 to 1. Keem Mesidor there for the Chargers, 16 to 1. Dylan Thieneman, the talented safety out of Oregon, he landed with the Chicago Bears. He's 22 to 1. And then we also have Malachi Lawrence here coming in 25 to 1. Jacob Rodriguez, 25 to 1. CJ Allen comes in 25 to 1. Keldrick Falk, 35 to 1. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, 40 to 1. D'Angelo Pons, 40 to 1. TJ Parker, 50 to 1. Chris Johnson here, 50 to 1. Cassius Howe, 50 to 1. Anthony Hill Jr., 50 to 1. And Caleb Hood, also 50 to 1. So, Steve, another one where even for some of these like day two guys, they're still going off not my favorite price. I do think there's more value here. I didn't click the button, but like Caleb Downs was kind of interesting, plus 850, just because he is someone who he's a big name. People are going to get a lot of eyes on the Cowboys all throughout the season with the amount of primetime games they have starting in week one. Kind of same argument, I guess, a little bit for Arvell Reese, but it feels like his rise could be a little bit more choppy with just like how they're going to fit Thibodeau, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, everyone they still have on that defensive line with him. So like Downs is interesting, and I have one more long shot that I'll give out as a best bet that's interesting, but anything stand out to you in the defensive market?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because to me, if you're going to bet defensive rookie of the year, it really should be, to me, an edge rusher, right? That's the safest bet to go with, in my opinion, is the edge, because they
look at the trends.
They can just put up the stats. They have that kind of impacting every play. There's going to be plays. Caleb Downs does a fantastic job in coverage, but he doesn't rack up a stat for that. There's not a stat that goes along with like covered well enough that they didn't throw your way. And so
that's kind of what happened to Nick Eamon last year for the Seahawks, right? Like it was him and Carson Schlesinger, but like you looked at Schlesinger's stats and they were just, 150 combined tackles. Like you can't really beat that from a safety position.
Right, unless you have like 7, 8, 9 interceptions and a few sacks, like, Derwin James-esque kind things. And while Caleb Downs is fantastic, it's just, I think the Cowboys are not quite in a place where they're going to be able to be so liberal with their use of him. They need him to be really solid in like coverage. So you're going to look at the edge and the linebacker position really for this. Who can put up the most counting stats? can a rookie get to double-digit sacks? If they
Mhm.
can, then we're really talking here, and then we can move forward and kind of look at that. And that's what we're going to have to hope for.
Okay. And before we get to our best bets, a real quick reminder that you can always connect with us and let us know your best bets and also get our best bets over in the IBT football family. Yes, that is our exclusive community where you can get access to chat with our analysts and our viewers and gain entry into our memorabilia giveaways at absolutely no cost. If you want to get access to our full betting cards and the touchdown call contest, you can upgrade for $3.99 per month or $36 for the year. That's going to include unlocking all the benefits to our IBT Racing family, the IBT Entertainment family, and the IBT Golf family. We have so much good information coming over there in the chats, all the giveaways we're doing, plus, of course, the weekly betting models for all those sports, plus the contest, whether that's the NFL playoff contest, the PGA One and Done tournament, the NASCAR head-to-head tournament, the Survivor Fantasy Leagues, all happening right there in the IBT family. Just go to in-betweenmedia.com/chat or click the link in the episode description. That'll take you right over there. So we don't want to make sure you guys are getting invested over there and continuing the conversation there. And Steve, let's continue that right here where you have a pick for the offensive rookie of the year market, staying at the quarterback position, trying to maybe get a little value like we saw last year with potentially Jackson Dart and Tyler Shuck, who all of a sudden, they were down in those single digits pretty quickly.
Yeah, so I'm going with Carson Beck, the current backup, but the presumed at some point starter for the Arizona Cardinals, because let's be real, the Cardinals are not competing right now. They're not contending right now.
Yeah.
And listen, this might be giving the Cardinals too much credit here, but new coaches, new regime, I'm going to give them a little bit of love here. When you are a team that is essentially thought of as a contender for the first overall pick, but you have a rookie quarterback on the roster, what you want to do is see what you got in him, right? They're not going to sit there and just let Jacoby Brissett play the whole year if they're losing. And they're going to lose plenty. This team has a ton of offensive weapons, and I think that at some point they're going to turn to Carson Beck and be like, all right, do we have our guy? Is this guy someone who can win us games and play well and play within the system and look good? Because that way you don't have to go get that quarterback, right? You could potentially trade back and get more draft assets or draft a different player, like, a defensive player, a dominant defensive player who's coming out next season. You can go after something like that instead. And I expect at some point, and I don't think it'll be like super, super long down the road, maybe like week 4, week 5, Carson Beck could see himself as the starting quarterback, especially with Jacoby Brissett sitting out of training camp already, like the mini camps, because he assumes he's a starter. He wants to be paid like a starter, even though he really. Oh, okay. Probably
he was
not.
slinging it around last year. He might win 0-10, but he was slinging it around
He went 1
the
and
yard
11
quite a bit.
1 and 11. That is not like he didn't. He put up stats because he just threw a lot. You know what I mean? It wasn't like efficient. It wasn't well done. He wasn't able to win games. So him sitting there being like, well, I want to be paid like a starter, Jacoby. Just be happy at collecting a paycheck at all. Let's not get crazy here.
Jacoby Brissett's never been respected his entire career, really, and he's had.
No. I respected him when I liked Jacoby Brissett. I've liked him from the time he was at NC State, tormenting my Seminoles. I liked him when he was a Patriot. Went in. I watched him play his first ever start in person at Gillette.
Okay.
I like Jacoby Brissett,
but
there's a reality that we have to live in here, and he is not the guy that they're going to pay because he's their future. This could be his second to last year in the league. You know what I mean? I mean, he's not far. He's much closer to retirement than he is the start of his career. And now Carson Beck's there. And I think the fans and the Cardinals in general are going to want this guy in there, even just from an ownership standpoint, because they'll sell jerseys, you'll make money, you'll do stuff like that. So I think Carson Beck has, at these 30-1 odds, is a real good play, because think of the talent he has around. And now it's Jeremiah Love, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson. I mean, he's got toys there, and the offensive line is not the worst in football. So I think, Carson Beck has the ability to win this award for sure.
Yeah, I think the offensive line is going to be a big variable. Like, to me, I've kind of been out on Beck more as a prospect the last 2 seasons, Steve. And he did answer a lot of questions, I think, at Miami, but he also had Malachi Toney and Mark Fletcher running downhill, had a lot of, great offensive linemen out in front of him, protecting him, including big Francis, Matt Mauano, right? So I think I question the talent. I think I question the maturity a little bit But what I don't question is everything you mentioned about like what's in front of him here in Arizona. Like, say what you want about the organization as a whole, say what you want about the facility. You can't take away that they have not surrounded whoever's playing quarterback with some weapons. Jeremiah Love in the backfield, Marvin Harrison, who we hope to can just continue to take a step forward. Michael Wilson comes out off 1,000-yard season, arguably the best tight end in the league. And like, let's not forget too, like when was Carson Beck at his best? That was in Georgia a couple years ago when statistically he was up there with the best of them. He had Brock Bowers at tight end. He had Ladd McConkey at wide receiver, right? So
Yeah.
it really feels like this could be a good spot for him. It's just like I'd prefer a 50-1 or a 60-1, and maybe this is one to slow play it a little bit. But if maybe they just from the start, hey, let's rip the Band-Aid off because you only have like one season to figure out if he's good or not, right? So they are inclined to play him.
Right. So let's not forget, if that season in between his Brock Bowers Georgia season and then this season, if that didn't happen, if he has just an average Carson Beck season,
Yeah.
this man is probably first off the board or second. He's going one or two.
I don't know about
think
that.
of how good we thought he was
projected
2
first round
years
pick,
ago.
first overall
I
pick.
mean, if he could have come out,
yeah,
he would have gone in the first round. Easy top 5 pick. People thought this dude was a lock. Then he has a down year. The whole Georgia offense does. The whole thing falls apart. He goes to Miami and then lights it up again.
Yeah.
I think he's better than people think he is. There was just always someone better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. I like that play. I also, Steve, like my best bet here for the defensive rookie of the year market. It's Jacob Rodriguez. Yes, the linebacker for the Miami Dolphins, 22-1 at BetRivers right now. And like following, like for me, Steve, I do agree with you. I'm usually a pass rusher heavy guy, but I think I had 2 units last year on Abdul Carter, and it just didn't come to fruition. And part of that was like, Abdul Carter did not really play good, to be honest with you. But like Carson Schlesinger kind of like build this new mold for what a defensive rookie of the year can be. And like a guy taken in the second round, a linebacker going to a terrible team that I just think the Dolphins are going to be on the field a ton. Their defenses, man. And like we saw Schlesinger last year in that 2025 draft comes out of UCLA, totals 156 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and took 88.2% of the vote. So James Pierce, Eamon Awori, they were in that conversation, but at the same time, like Schlesinger really did run away with that, and like I think Rodriguez could do something very similar because specifically we saw him do that last year in Lubbock, right? Like I think he's a super interesting player. This guy began his college career at quarterback when he played at Virginia, converts to linebacker. So he has that football IQ very high, comes down to the oil money in Texas Tech, and then like, man, just posts a great back-to-back seasons, 127 plus combined tackles, 10.5 plus tackles for loss. The only difference between the 2 years is that J-Rod actually had 5 sacks in 2024, only had 1 sack, believe it or not, in 2025, but he had 3 more interceptions and a nation-high 7 forced fumbles this past year, which really set him over the top. And he was also on that Texas Tech team with Baron Morton, Caleb Douglas, and company, who win the Big 12, therefore finished 5th in the Heisman voting, 17 first-place votes, which obviously you have to imagine most of those come from reporters in the Big 12, but at the same time, like this dude won every single honor he could, man. Like consensus All-American, Big 12 Defense Player of the Year, Dick Butkus Award, Vince Lombardi Award, like a ton of other ones too. And like for me, like I think this offense, it's Malik Willis, first time really getting an offense to himself. He's got a bunch of rookies. Chris Bell, probably the best receiver in this class that they got. He's coming off an injury. Malik Washington's really the one stable force there. Jalen Tolbert doesn't really inspire confidence. And like Jeff Hafley, man, like you know from his time up there in Boston College, dude, this guy can get the most out of not a lot here on the defensive side of the ball. Like Quay Walker, pretty decent linebacker for the Packers. I know he was supposed to be the next big thing, but never really was. But the last 2 years in Green Bay, like he got the most out of him, man. So I think J-Rod will be firmly in the mix for this award, 22-1. It feels like a pretty silly number for me. So Jacob Rodriguez, Defensive Rookie of the Year, 22-1. I'm going 0.8 of a unit on this.
I like it. If, and this is a big if his pass coverage can translate, because I worry that his athleticism is just a bit short for
That's
a
fair.
good coverage linebacker. And if he can't cover, that means he's coming off the field a lot because this is now a passing league. And even in this new 2 tight end set, if he can't cover a good tight end, it's going to expose him. He's going to have to come up the field more. Quay Walker, much better in pass coverage, presumably, than Rodriguez will be day one. And it just, there's worries about this early. I don't love the landing. I love the landing spot if he can stay on the field, but if he has to come off and sub in and sub out, that's what made Schwerzinger.
Yeah, try saying that 5 times
for
fast,
real.
especially
Like,
for
oh
us
my God.
Northerners. Does not go well.
Yeah, I know. It's just like it just comes out garbled, like I have a mouthful of marbles. But he was able to cover, right? He's a good coverage linebacker.
Yeah.
He came out, just blew expectations away. You know what I mean? And that's just something I would caution people about. But at 22-1 on a defense that's going to be on the field a gazillion times. I mean, he could fall just ass backwards into 100 tackles. You know what I mean? So
easily. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think he'll be in the mix. So I just think 22-1 when looking at the board, I think he's the best shot you have here. I mean, you got CJ Allen, some other interesting linebackers, but I'm going to trust J-Rod, man. He did it in college last year. I think he'll have the opportunity to do it down here in South Beach as well. And Steve, you are going to take us back to the offensive side of the board where you and I, man, we have drove this hype train for, I feel like not even this year, but like realistically, like I think like after the 2024 college football season, you and I were both like, hey, this guy deserves to be in the day one conversation. Obviously, the season doesn't go his way in 2025 or the Clemson Tigers way, but you and I have been driving the hype train. All of a sudden, everyone else is jumping on it. So what do you have to say about our man, Antonio Williams?
Yeah, he landed in a great spot. And it's like some of these odds, I just look back at them and I'm like, what am I missing here that he's not getting? Why am I seeing Casey Concepcion at better odds than him? Why am I seeing Omar Cooper Jr. and Kenyon Sadiq with better odds? They're all going off at plus 3,000. Whereas Antonio Williams, one of the best route runners in the class, came out, had an amazing like combine for what people thought he was going to do. He blew expectations away on that. He's an athletic guy. He can jump out of the building. He's quick in the shuttles. He did all that stuff. And he's still going off at 35-1 when he has Jaden Daniels throwing him the ball. That's the other thing is look at who's getting him the ball, an absolute stud. So Antonio Williams, we have driven this hype train. His agent should be paying us, I feel like, because like we should have gotten commission for how much we've risen his like ADP at this point. Still incredibly like divisive fantasy prospect, right? Like I've seen him go as early as the 110. Might have been to me, but nonetheless, I've seen it to happen.
I've started to see that. Like you did that on a mock draft a couple weeks ago, and I was like, man, that feels early. And I've started to see that.
And then you start to see it happening.
Yes.
And then I just did a draft, and he went up to 209. So it's incredibly the variables with Antonio Williams is incredible. But with Deebo Samuel gone, they didn't really do much to address the position. Even still, they're letting it ride. It seems like they are content letting this kid be the number 2 to Terry McLaurin, who we know has a history of injuries. So this could well be the situation where Antonio Williams just by default becomes the primary target and that short target, which means they're trying to get the ball out of Jaden Daniels' hands, keep him upright, keep him healthy. Antonio Williams, sneaky contender for like an 80, 85 catch season.
Yeah, honestly, I don't hate that, Steve, specifically because you look like what else is on this Commanders roster, man. Like it's much, right? You have guys like, former San Jose State great Nick Nash. He's kind of clogging up the depth chart there. Van Jefferson, Traylon Burks of yesteryear, right? Dimey Brown's back in town. Luke McCaffrey still trying to make something of his career. But like, I'm like bullish on Chig, actually. I think it's like Chig or Antonio Williams who are the second option here. The big thing for me is like, I think he's kind of going to play what Dimey Brown a couple of years ago in the playoffs was doing, where like he was just snapping off routes, bro, and coming back. And Jaden Daniels loved those, right? I mean, how many curls did we see Dimey Brown just absolutely like, route people up? And Dimey Brown, like average route runner, right? Nothing special. I think Antonio Williams
below average.
Yeah. So you have someone like Antonio Williams. I think the question marks here is how does the new offensive scheme look, right? And can not only like because I do think like Terry McLaurin's injury risk does give you a bit of a bump in value here. However, you also have an injury risk in Jaden Daniels, who I'm like having a really hard time ranking this year for fantasy, Steve, specifically because this guy plays at the top 5 quarterback. But for me, he's always been someone, even in his time at LSU and Arizona State, going back before that, like to take some shots, right? Kind of in that same Jackson Dart era, but like Jackson Dart's a bit thicker, I would say, than Jaden Daniels. He's always been a bit lankier. So that's just my only concern is like, what happens then if it's Antonio Williams catching passes from Marcus Mariota? It doesn't feel as good at 35-1.
But it should, because actually Deebo Samuel did a lot better than Terry McLaurin did when it came to Marcus Mariota.
True. Yeah, good point.
Because Mariota doesn't have that arm. He just doesn't have that arm to push it to Terry.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I like it, man. Good stuff here. I appreciate you shouting out our boy one more time here. Antonio Williams, Offensive Rookie of the Year here for Steve, 35-1 at TheScore. Jacob Rodriguez for me, Defensive Rookie of the Year, 22-1 at BetRivers. And then Carson Beck, also to Steve, on the Offensive Rookie of the Year ticket at 30-1 at BetRivers. And folks, that is going to do it for us tonight on the In Between Fantasy Football podcast. If you rode along with us so far, please give this video a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe to the entire channel right here for the IBT podcast and the main IBT channel as well, where we have fantasy football and NFL betting content for you, college football betting, NASCAR betting, PGA betting, and entertainment betting, all to help you cash more and to enjoy the ride along the way. Be sure to check out all the great written content in-betweenmedia.com/chat and join the community for free right now in-betweenmedia.com/chat. For Stephen Lawson, I'm Seth Woolcock. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, everyone, keep it in between.